play with me. Let's do it. Come here and play with me. Let's do it. Come here and play with me. Let's do it.
This is DJ Pee Wee Ferris, and you're watching the History of House Part 1. In the old days, there was no internet, so we used to have to go to the record store very early in the morning when the shipment was delivered, and they'd have a box, probably a couple of boxes, and they'd have one copy of each record, and it was ever first, got that one copy for the next 6 months because you could never get it again. So I always was first there and got it, and you'd have this track for months and no one could buy it or play it, and you'd have a guaranteed audience because no one else could play this track, and it was great. You know, that was the ultimate. You know, you had this one song everybody wanted, and I made all these big hits for years that no one even knew and they couldn't get it, and it was, that was the beginning of record stores. Then city grew and more shops imported music, and it sort of grew and grew, and then. Most house obviously was Chicago, New York, and Detroit. Basically, I mean, the purists will always say Chicago, but it was a pretty big area, and people influenced each other. But the true house music was from America, but a lot of people moved around and were influenced, so it got bigger and branched out through the world over the next those couple of years from 1988, and went to England. England had a lot of really big house tracks that they sort of copied the Chicago sound. So there was a big sound from England that was very similar, but there was a little bit more commercial. They sort of took the most commercial parts of the house music, made it more popular. We said that was probably Jack Your Body, or Marshall Jefferson movie Body. A lot of bodies in those days. What else was there? I mean, in those days, the early sound was really mixed with other sounds. Like, I remember, Love Come Turn Around. We'd always play these tracks with other sort of more Euro sounding stuff like Blue Monday and all these things that had that same sort of beat, but it wasn't technically house music. But that's where the sound developed from that sort of Euro sound that was mixed with a modern drum machine sound at that time. So it wasn't just one direct sound all night long. It was a real mixture of things all through the night. But eventually it became all one sort of similar direction. But it took a while, it took a couple of years before that happened. I mean, basically they all was, sorry, I'll stop again. Basically they all was, sorry, I'll stop again. It's always hard when you repeat the same thing. I mean, technology was the dominant factor with the movement of sound in house music, because as the technology changed, the sound changed, and in those days it was the 909, the Roland TR-909 drum machine, which was the sound of the kick and snare and hi-hat and the crash. That's all they used, that and a Roland 303 or a DX100, which is the bass sound, but that's all they used basically, and a sampler. And they just used simple samples because that's all they had. And the sound developed from the technology, and as the technology changed, the sound changed. And as they got better at it, they incorporated more keyboards that would work with it. But in those days it was difficult because you had to sync everything up with the CV and the gate, and it was difficult. It wasn't like now where you could just lock together. It was hard to lock music in time with other instruments. It was not that easy. So you had to know what you were doing. So the sampler really helped a lot of people understand to make it easier to develop music. I was The first one I went to was, well, I worked at was the Dance Delirium in Sydney Dance Company. That was the first big one, and it had a fantastic feeling. It was like a private party with 3,000 people, and we had really good vibe, really happy, no trouble. It was all, no one knew about it. It was just people knew each other. The Sydney gay scene was very much linked with all these parties, and that's why it had a really good atmosphere. And the Sydney gay scene at that time was really, really powerful. And this was a new sort of angle of modern music in that scene, because that scene was very much typical, the Oxford Street dance sound, didn't play house music. So it was a very different market to that. So we sort of changed the way Sydney thought music should be in nightclubs. I had a feeling, because it was so different, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. This is the history of house, and this is DJ Pee Wee Ferris.